good morning. Thank you for joining us for our devotion and word of encouragement. I want to keep walking through Exodus some. I like reading through books of the Bible, doing my devotions that way. And so I'm going to move to the end of chapter 2 and the first part of chapter 3 of Exodus. And we're going to look at Moses some more. At this point, Moses has fled Egypt. He's grown. And he's now married. Jethro is his father-in-law. He's tending Jethro's sheep when we encounter him. But in the midst of it, at the very end of chapter 2, it tells us that after a long time, the king of Egypt had died, and the Israelites groaned because of their difficult labor. They cried out in their cry for help because of the difficult labor ascended to God. And it says that God heard their groaning. He heard their frustration. And in the midst of that, the very next little bit is, meanwhile, Moses was shepherding. He's out practicing his leadership skills on a bunch of sheep that don't want to listen. It tells us that he's out near Mount Horeb, and all of a sudden, when that happens, he realizes and he sees the burning bush. And for a man like myself who enjoys sitting by the fire and watching those flames flicker around a log, and ultimately it turned to hot coals and then ash, I know that fire must consume something. But Moses looked at that bush and he saw something that was clearly on fire, but it was not being consumed. And so he goes near it, and the only thing you can think about him hearing are those sounds. The wind whistling around the mountain, and the blah, blah of the sheep. And all of a sudden, God says, Moses, Moses. Oh, I wonder, can you imagine all of a sudden, you're like, now who said that? It's God. He's calling him. He said, I want you to come over here. He says, remove those sandals. Take them off. This is holy ground. For them, that was a sign, a place of honor. It was done very normally when you went to a superior's house. It was done on a very natural piece going into a home. But yet, the Lord says, I have heard, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt. And I have heard them crying out because of their oppressors. Oh, the Lord was listening even in the difficult times. He was watching over them in the midst of it. Now, Moses isn't seeking this peace. Moses isn't wondering, how do I go help the people of Egypt? Remember, he fled because he killed someone, and it had become known. But yet, the Lord's surprise, his invasion of the ordinary, makes this story. Let me read you out of one of my commentaries, this little line. It says, Moses is no seeker. He's no discoverer. He is rather discovered. He's sought out, unwittingly co-opted by the divine plan. God is, I guess there was two things that struck me. There are, I think, 3 different occasions God says, I heard the cry of my people. I was carefully watching. I was paying attention. I am not asleep at the wheel. I hear my people. I hear their groaning. Sounds like some of us today. We're groaning. We're frustrated because it's not normal. And yet the same God that is on the throne for Moses and for the children of Israel is on the throne today. See, Moses is going to hear these words. He's going to go, when Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they couldn't stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. And we know Moses is going to come along and he's going to lead the people out of Egypt. God, in the midst of all of this, is going to lead us into a new normal. I don't know what Moses is going to look like, but I know that God is hearing us. I know that God has a plan. I know that God is still working in and around us. And He's going to be there when it is our time to be removed from all of these restrictions. But my thing is, how do we hear the burning bush? How do we hear God's calling so that we can be a part of God leading us into a new place? Because it is very clear for them. He says, I'm going to lead them out of the land of Goshen, out of Egypt, and I'm going to go to this place that is the promised land. And you and I are going to go to a new place as well. It's going to look different. Our address is going to be the same. Where we go to church is going to be the same. But how we do church is still probably going to be a little different. How we worship and how we connect. We're going to think about not shaking hands and rubbing elbows, social distancing. But in that, God is going to work so that we can meet some new people. And He's going to take care of us in the midst of all of that. God said, I heard their groanings. Moses, go down to Egypt land and let my people free. Go down to Greenwood. Release them from their bonds so that they may be a light on hill for all to see. Amen and God bless.